4.5 long years ago, in the before times of 2019, I made a video about Alabama passing an abortion ban called the Human Life Protection Act, because of course it was called that. The bill made abortion illegal, even in cases of rape, and called for a 99-year imprisonment of doctors who performed abortions. In that video, I made reference to an exchange that happened in the Alabama State Senate. Democratic State Senator Roger Mel Smitherman asked, why would fertilized eggs in the womb immediately be granted personhood, but not the thousands upon thousands of fertilized eggs in fertility clinics? To which Republican State Senator Clyde Chambliss replied, the egg in the lab doesn't apply. It's not in a woman. She's not pregnant. This brought up several issues. First of all, this was a politician literally saying the quiet part out loud, that the purpose of the bill was not to protect human life, but to punish women. Because if the true purpose was to protect human life, aka fertilized eggs, those thousands upon thousands of fertility clinic eggs would have absolutely been included at the outset. But it also highlighted something that abortion activists have been saying for a really long time. These badly written pseudoscientific laws would be a slippery slope, not just to punishing poor women who don't want to give birth, but to also punishing middle-class and rich women who do want to give birth. And one obvious way it will do that is by outlawing IVF, or in vitro fertilization, which of course is the process by which people harvest their eggs, fertilize them with sperm in a petri dish, and then either have them implanted to hopefully carry to term, or freeze them for possible future implantation. I find it interesting because much like outlawing abortion, even in cases of rape, the Christian evangelical opposition to IVF seems ridiculous and barbaric to the average normal person, but it really is the most ideologically consistent position that these assholes can have. If you truly, fully believe that a fertilized egg is exactly the same as a fully grown human being, deserving of all the same rights, and in some cases deserving of more rights than a living woman, then yes, this is what you should advocate for. IVF should be the very first thing you go after, because if women getting abortions are bad, then IVF is a goddamn embryonic holocaust. There are millions of fertilized eggs that are created only to be thrown away in the process. And I'm not even counting those that are actually implanted but fail to result in a live birth. The process runs through so many fertilized eggs that, yeah, if you think those fertilized eggs are human lives and killing them is murder, then you should be burning down IVF clinics. Obviously, the good Lord God himself destroys way more fertilized eggs every year than even IVF, thanks to human beings' very high rate of natural miscarriage. Something like 40 to 60% of all embryos naturally fail to make it to birth. So if you've got 140 million babies born in a year, you can assume there's another 140 million that God killed. But there's not a whole lot for evangelicals to do about that besides provide better contraception access and prenatal care for pregnant people. But that's crazy. It's way easier to just get rid of IVF.
The effect of Roe versus Wade in 1973 was that an unborn child is not a person, as referenced in the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment says that no state shall deprive any person of life.
An amendment offered by Senator Linda Coleman Madison to mandate additional state-funded prenatal and delivery care for the mother and child failed on a voice vote.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Nay.
The amendment's defeated. Okay, thank you, Senator Coleman Madison. Any further comments, Senator Coleman Madison?
Based on this amendment that I'm offering, a living, breathing, born person that you said must be born, the mother is forced to have, yet this body refuses to say that person is worthy of care.
Anyway, back in 2019, in order to get that bill passed, the Republicans would not have been able to admit that, yes, this law will naturally lead to an IVF ban, which is why they instead had to admit, no, they just wanted to punish women. It's been 5 years, though. Roe v. Wade is dead. So now the Overton window has shifted rightward enough for the inevitable. The Alabama Supreme Court has just last week confirmed that thanks to that 2019 Human Life Protection Act, fertilized eggs at IVF clinics are now children. This all happened thanks to an IVF patient gaining access to the facility's freezer, where for some reason they grabbed a bunch of eggs, burned their hands, and dropped them, destroying the embryos. The patients whose embryos those were sued the facility for wrongful death of a minor. A lower court threw that out, but then the Supreme Court picked it up, and they determined that those patients were in fact correct. The irony, of course, is that by winning, those patients basically guaranteed that every other potential IVF patient in the state won't be able to have children unless they have the time and money to flee to another, better state. The only dissenting judge in this case wrote that the creation of frozen embryos will end in Alabama. No rational medical provider would continue to provide services for creating and maintaining frozen embryos, knowing that they must continue to maintain such frozen embryos forever or risk the penalty of a Wrongful Death Act claim for punitive damages. It will not surprise you to note that the Christian God was cited in the ruling dozens of times because Founding Fathers and First Amendments be damned, America is a theocracy. So what's next? Well, we will see similar cases popping up in every other red state to effectively ban IVF there as well. And eventually the federal court will probably take a swing at this as well. My hope is that IVF patients start claiming their fertilized eggs on their state income taxes, applying for state child care aid, and of course, registering any embryo of appropriate age to vote. I find all of this very interesting because sensible people were already fired up about the fall of Roe v. Wade and will hopefully show up at the polls this year. But I bet there are an awful lot of middle class and wealthy people who didn't care about any of that because they thought it didn't affect them or their loved ones. Last fall, a Pew Research poll found that 42% of Americans have either used fertility treatments or know someone who has, a number that has gone up dramatically in the past few years. Most of those people are white and wealthy. Only a small percentage of those people end up getting IVF specifically, but plenty of them have had these fertility issues and thus have considered that they might end up needing that as an option. Thanks in part to how our society tends to demonize women for getting abortions, IVF is a procedure that privileged people are much more likely to consider getting themselves, and they're much more likely to have sympathy for someone who undergoes it. I, of course, am the opposite because I'm a heartless monster who does not understand the overwhelming biological urge to give birth to something at all costs, rather than just pick up one of those other babies that nobody else wants. But hey, different strokes. So while I'm not happy that this judgment will make life much harder for those people who do desperately want to get pregnant at all costs via IVF, and I'm not happy to see the religious right continue their relentless march towards governing everything we do with our bodies, in a strange way, I am glad that this happened so quickly after Roe v. Wade was struck down. I figured the evangelicals would see how extremely unpopular the Dobbs decision was, and therefore wait until after the 2024 election to move ahead. But we might actually pick up some slightly more progressive votes in Alabama and other places thanks to this. So, that's just me, always looking at the silver lining. If you're in Alabama, or actually if you're anywhere in the United States, do please go out and vote this November for any progressive candidate you can. If you are anywhere at all in the world and you have some money to spare, I would recommend helping out the reproductive healthcare workers at West Alabama Women's Center. They're struggling to remain open. They can't provide abortions anymore, but they do provide inpatient care for people who can get to them, very important reproductive care. They also provide constant telehealth appointments for patients across the rest of Alabama. So please go to alreprohealth.com, give them some cash. If you don't have any cash to give them, no worries. I appreciate you watching and sharing this video. And as thanks, I will be donating the ad money from this video to them. So thank you for watching, sharing, liking, subscribing, etc. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.